Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is Texas Tales with your co-host James Casa. But today I'm going to be your main host. Josh is out on vacation, and we had a couple guests booked in, but everybody's getting back from the fishing show, so plans, misaligned. We didn't get it put together, so we're just going to be a solo show. It's going to be a short one tonight. We're going to be talking about just that, the fishing show that just took place in Houston. If you have not, if you've never attended the fishing expo, this was my first year. I really encourage you to stop by. I was pleasantly surprised with everything that was there. The vendors were really nice, really good supplies. I'm sure this community. You probably go to a lot of gun shows sometimes, and you have that feeling of like, man, there's just not a lot here that's for me per se. But I thought they had great stuff there. The prices were fair. Um, Everybody's really knowledgeable, and it had a good variety at that. Obviously it was fishing centric, and saltwater fishing centric at that, but I thought overall there was just a ample amount of stuff there that was kind of unique. You had your tackle, you had your lures, you had boats, you had rods, reels, you had ice chest, you had covers, you had a lot of guides, and a lot of like out of state guides. It was kind of fascinating. There were multiple Alaska guides, like out of state tuna trips, salmon trips, a couple Louisiana vendors there being in Houston so close. I was really pleasantly surprised. Like I said, if you're not familiar, as I wasn't before, the fishing show kind of seems to happen every year about that time. Like I said, happens in Houston. The kayak selection, the price. First off, prices weren't bad on the kayaks. Most, they every Hobie you could want. They had every Feel Free. Every brand, Old Town, etc. A lot of big boats, a lot of offshore boats, and surprisingly, some of them were selling. That was pretty interesting. I know B&D Boatworks out of Seadrift had brought a bunch of like skiffs, and they seemed like they were doing great, man. They every one of them was listed. Just really positive overall. Like I said, great show, great people, really good products. It shocked me in a positive way. I walked in kinda not knowing what to expect. Sometimes, like I said, I've been to a lot of gun shows in my life, and it feels just a little gimmicky sometimes where selection's not great. It's a lot of, like, basic name brand stuff with kinda crazy markup, but the fishing show really wasn't that way at all. I would say by far and away the busiest booth was the Waterloo guys. Man, they were moving some rods and reels. I would say no less than 10 people every 30 minutes were purchasing something. And what was crazy is their shelves were always full, but I was seeing people walking out with rods and reels right and left. Really, really good, good sales all around. I was there with the magazine for a little bit, and I was lazy. I didn't help too much, but kind of getting to observe and take it in. And a lot of people stopping by. A lot of people recognize the magazine. So shout out if you dropped in and talked, because that was really cool. Talking to people that had read stuff you wrote and everything else. I thought that was really unique. What else was there? This was my favorite product of the show. I was a sucker for this one. This is by Nomad, and it's their live op series, and it's a shrimp, and I don't know if any of y'all have ever fished the Texas coast. That looks exactly like a shrimp you would see in Texas. I was pretty I mean, I looked at it instantly and was sold. And I asked the guys, like, "How much are those?" And we went back and forth, and we're talking about, what the other options that they had. And he was showing me that they had a 2.3 inch, I think it's called the flicker shrimp, and it was substantially smaller, but same color profile. And it was like that pretty much perfectly matches like 90% of the bait that I see in those like marshy, murky areas, kind of bayou-esque type environments where I'm finding redfish in that like late fall, especially. I mean, that small shrimp about yay big is just normally like you'll see them feeding on it just habitually. So it was really cool. It was the first lure I've ever looked at where I just went, that is just, I mean, there's nothing I would change about this. So that was a cool find, and I picked up a pack of those. So I'll keep y'all posted. I believe they're scented. I thought they were rigged. They're not. So we'll play around with some of the rigging mechanisms. Apparently, you can rig them both directions, so you can have it forward and backwards. So that was pretty neat. Yeah, I really like the Nomad products and love talking to the guys. It always gets me too. I love talking boat products. We're currently in like the early stages of searching for a boat. So I had some conversations and met with some people, and I thought that was really unique. Probably though, the best conversation or most informative conversation, I'll say, I talked with the guy, we'll be having him on in a few weeks. Um, Performance Based Optics, I believe is the company, but they make sunglasses and really broke down a lot of the kind of the like common misconceptions surrounding lens colors and pursuing fish. I thought he was super informative. Product was really like reasonably affordable, and he could explain every feature on there. So I thought that was great. So we'll be having Bill on, I think, in 2 weeks to kind of lay out, what are the things that you may that may be wrong in your impression, and some of the things you may be told that are wrong. So I am very excited to have them on, and their sunglasses look great. I was shopping them earlier. I'll pull them up in just a second. I think they're really good looking, and they got me, man. I was really happy. I think I've always had a pretty strong opinion on my sunglasses, especially for fishing and polling and everything. And this was the first pair that I wasn't familiar with that I felt really kind of, I don't know, lived up to. I'll pull them up on the screen right here. You can see their website. Yeah, like I said, this is their performance based optics or PBO. I keep saying BPO. And it's really interesting. So he was talking about the difference between like the true lens color and then like I'll let him explain it, but like the cover over the lens itself that gives it that like external color. And I kind of thought that was cool because I was always told, green lens is what you want. And he was pretty quick to be like, actually, that's not really the case. Like that's it's the same lens, it's just a different cover. Like I said, he'll come on and explain it. But yeah, I was really enamored with his products and his knowledge. So I'm so excited to have him come on because I think that's such an overlooked element in fishing is kind of hey, what sunglasses should I be running? And especially those of y'all who know, like y'all, that Central Coast to kind of from kind of Port Aransas up towards Louisiana area, you know what it's like to pull for fish in less than ideal conditions. I know a guy out in Nueces Bay, and I'm like, man, I don't know how you see these fish sometimes where it's just, it's the faintest shadow. So it makes a big difference in getting a good lens. So that was a great conversation. Some of the other conversations, we talked some of the performance props out there. We're going to be having those people on. I know Josh knows plenty of them. That's always kind of that. I think in sunglasses and performance props to me kind of fit in a similar basket, if you will, where I don't think there's enough conversations about, what to do. And even seasoned fishermen and women, I think sometimes kind of in a reality of like, well, I know you're supposed to change your prop, but what does that mean? And I think kind of the initial Google search, I think there's these handful of topics that the initial Google search kind of leads you with more questions than possible answers. And it's kind of difficult to find the forums that discuss this stuff and the type of detail that's necessary. So I really want to get some performance props people on this year, talking about the little changes you can make to, improve your whole shot. And, that's always a good thing, especially the tidal patterns lately have just been extreme. Multiple people reporting last week of February, multiple people were saying we went from one of the lowest tide swings to one of the highest tide swings in like almost record time. And I was seeing areas no water to waters up in the grass the next day. So having a good prop is pretty pretty important for managing all that. But yeah, no, like I said, I was enamored with the fishing show. It was so many different vendors. Um, I definitely think the rod sales were through the roof. I couldn't believe how many people. One, the company's running the promotions. I know Green Rods was running some great deals. I know Waterloo, of course, was running some really good on display deals, and Laguna Rods. There was a few others, but I was just shocked at how many people were just going up and no questions asked, purchasing rods and reels and expensive reels, expensive rods at that. I saw multiple. There's like Strata Series Shimano's go out of the Shimano booth, a whole bunch of very high-end Laguna rods by one gentleman, a whole stack of them. And so that was really positive, and that's great to see for the industry. We talk about this all the time. Anything that's going to get more people out on the water is inherently a good thing. And then I personally, my favorite non-fishing related conversation. There's a little tie-in. We're hopefully going to be having a guest on from backcountry hunters and anglers because I'm sure our audience is aware, and if you're not, you really should look it up about the headwaters issue and what backcountry hunters and anglers is doing to kind of address it. I signed up on the spot. after a brief conversation with these gentlemen because it really is one of those issues that if you're not on the right side of if you're not actively fighting it, it's there's just nothing you're going to be able to do. So we're going to go. That's going to be a pretty long episode. So I hope y'all tune into that. That'll be coming up hopefully next week, maybe 2 weeks out, and we'll cover kind of what's going on, what you need to know. We're going to give you an elevator pitch in the beginning, and then we're going to go through some of the nuance that's surrounding like the kind of the legislative push behind it, if you will. But I that was a great relationship to make, and I love those people, and I read their work constantly. I love their magazine, and I think they're $30, or that was the promotion they're running at the show, and that was the other thing. Multiple different groups were running great promotions. Of course, our friend at Angler U, Caleb was Macumber, Captain Caleb was running a promotion. I believe you could sign up for the first month for free on Angler U, and it's no charge. There's no fees. Utilize it, see if you like it, and then I think you could sign up, or it was something to that effect. So that was great. And then our friends also at Salt Strong they were giving away their trademark lure. Oh, what is I've got a package sitting over there. But they were giving those away right and left for people signing up and just sitting there and talking. And they had like a little spin clicky wheel kind of Price is Right style where you could win different prizes. That was pretty neat. But yeah, like I said, I really it was super family friendly. Lots of kiddos, lots of families. Parking sucks and is expensive. I'll tell you that much. Getting there early was pretty huge because it was difficult to find parking after that, and it cost ridiculous amounts. And even some of the further away lots were still like $50 a day. So yeah, getting there early was definitely a win. Some of the neat products that I saw, some of the stuff that I thought was kind of groundbreaking. There was a lot of kayaks that were kind of unique. There was one I'm going to pull it up right now, and the brand's escaping me right now, but it was an outboard on the back, and then they had like the trolling motor spot lock, like a traditional boat set up on the front, and it was they were selling them. I mean, uh, they were they were moving them, and I mean, it was pretty interesting to say the least. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. I saw one gentleman kind of going up, and he was talking about what he was going to end up having to pay for what he would have to pay for a regular boat. This is such a win, and I from that logic standpoint, if it's just yourself, I understand it. It was interesting. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but yeah, it was something else, and they had 'em, like, stacked straight up and down where it was so funny. You walk past, and I was like, "That's a Tohatsu on the back of this kayak," and I'm super familiar with, like, the Old Town and the Autopilot. That was an option I thought I was gonna do for a little while, and, it was crazy. It was absolutely something else. Some of the other products, Knock and Tell lures, their videos are so good on just hitting on the highlight on how loud those lures are and what a difference it makes. I know lots of guides that fish with them, especially, the kayak guides that don't wanna have to cover as much water, and they're super happy with them. So that was pretty neat. And they seemed like they were doing excellent business, and they were right across the way, and actually, we knew Josh Shive, the host, wasn't gonna be on, but we were trying to get Joshua Johnson, who was with, Knock and Tell Lures, but he had something come up. And, anyway, no, he it was so funny. He walked up, and seeing, meeting people online is so different that these people would walk up, and he'd kinda be like, "Who's that?" And they always get the hurtful one of like, I thought you'd be taller in person." That's always a nice one to get. But no, it was super cool. I'm trying to think what else, like I said, if you haven't been, I strongly encourage you to go. It was a great opportunity to connect with some anglers and, meeting some guides there. There was a lot of guides pushing business, and they were doing it in such a respectful way that was really cool where, have a conversation with them. And if you think you think that's somebody you'd be interested in booking with, that's someone to talk to. Pam, the better half of Everett, founder of Texas Saltwater Fishing Magazine, was telling me how the guides used to show up back in the day with just a cooler full of fish. And they're like, "Hey, come with me. We'll do this." And then people started complaining about the smell. So they drilled plexiglass and had coolers full of fish underneath there as like their sales point. So no coolers of fish were there. Lots of coolers, lots of cooler raffles. Lots of gosh, I swear everybody's selling turtle boxes these days. That was like a number one ticket item at every booth. But lots of little skiffs, man. I'm a big skiff fanatic, and I know our friend we've had on before, Ty Sullivan, Ty on the Fly. 30 Miles Out TV. He always does his little skiff watch around Rockport, and man, he would have been going berserk. His radar wouldn't have worked in there because there was so many little skiffs, really nice layouts, minimalist designs. If you were fishing kind of in the territory where I'm at, where it's convenient Saturdays, but you still want a boat, you still want to cover water. I felt like there was a great representation of those boats available, and the all the dealers, even as big as Ron Hoover down to like B&D Boatworks, we're doing some pretty good on show promotions to kind of make it worthwhile. Not trying to take advantage of like the energy or like the atmosphere, but just kind of offering like pretty fair and good pricing. So that was pretty exciting, and getting to see, all the new styles of boats, and kind of getting to look at things side by side. Sometimes, in a dealership, everything gets so sorted, and that's kind of the problem I'm running into. It's hard to remember, most dealerships don't carry, the 3 different brands you may be considering, so you don't get the opportunity to see them, one next to the other, next to the other. And the show, it was kinda cool because you could literally go from dealer to dealer to dealer and kinda looking at the things you did and didn't like, and, it was, there wasn't a lot to dislike because all the boats did look great, but, it was funny, you could kinda notice those little nuancy things of like, "Oh, yeah, that extra, 12 inches, really is, this boat looks a lot bigger or it doesn't look bigger." How much, some of these boats sometimes what I suffer from in these minimal skiffs is they look so big. It looks like you have so much space on the front end, but it's because they don't have a trolling motor yet. They don't have a cooler. They don't have, life jackets stored in those boxes that, they have tackle stuff in there. So the tackle's got to come out. It was kinda cool to get to see, which boat really is giving you the most space, and then you look at that storage in real time of like, well, is that extra space, does it really mean something or not as much? And, always having little ones around, how small is too small of a gunwale on a boat, and that's that side of that boat, like, does this feel safe? Does this feel like you could have a little one on it and not worry about them falling over? It was a really good opportunity where if you were new on the boat market, and not saying you have to even go there to buy, but just to go there to talk to people and meet, and kind of figure out what you do and don't like, and take your wife, give her an opportunity to see it. It was, like I said, it was great, and I felt nobody was pushy. I'm trying to think of all the friends we saw there. I saw Jared Easley, who we're hoping to have on soon. We're scheduling difficulties on our part, but he was there promoting his merch. So if you're watching, go check his stuff out. Jared Easley's got great red fishing like merch and hats and stuff, and also a great guide. Got to catch up with him a little bit, and it seemed like I said, it seemed like he was doing great. He was over by the snacks and drinks, which wasn't a bad place to be. It was a great area to promote. Um, but yeah, it was really, really cool, guys. I would strongly encourage you, especially you got little ones. There was so much for them to do. They had little activities. They had like casting competitions where, they were winning like little rods and reel setups and little like cooler bags and stuff, all kinds of stuff. The presentations were neat. That was cool. They had lots of presentations, some over freshwater bass fishing, some over, setting up your boat for saltwater, wade fishing. It just always depresses me because I feel like everybody just says, started up saying it was so good, in the 80s or, 10 years ago. Now it's like this. So it did depress me because I walked past on like 2 or 3 different occasions where everybody's like, well, you should have been fishing this spot 10 years ago because it was really something and you could find red so easy. So that was less fortunate, but that's why you have to support our groups like Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. That's why it is so important because if we don't take these steps for protection, we're gonna consistently be up there going, it's gone downhill. The funny aside was I noticed Pheasant Fest for the Bearded Uplander who we just had on a couple episodes ago. He they were having Pheasant Fest the same weekend we were having our fishing expo, so I thought that was kind of a funny like little overlapping worlds that both the festivals were occurring. Um, but yeah, no, ultimately, guys, I would encourage you to go next year. And honestly, I would show up with money in your pocket. Like I said, the deals on the rods, reels, and the tackle and lures and everything else was phenomenal. And like I said, nobody was pushy. It was just kind of a fun, good time, and kind of getting to meet like-minded people and picking up on the little stuff. But yeah, guys, stay tuned. We got an exciting year. I know it's been slow rolling, but we're gonna have some really big names